We're live. Welcome to the Barbell Life Show. Tony Camper here. Today's guest, actually, you know how Facebook has the suggested friends, right? So I'm looking through my Facebook and it says Michael Youngblood, and I was like, that's a cool last name. I grew up collecting comics and stuff, and
Right.
The Youngbloods was one of the comic books that I liked, and the name right off the bat got my attention. So I'm looking at the profile and I click on it, and then I see all these wrestling pictures, and I was like, "Oh, awesome! I wanna interview this guy."
Yeah.
But what's funny about that is, I sent you the friend request, and then I want to say maybe a day or so later, you reached out to me, and you're telling me your situation with your sponsor and all that, and we started talking about some business stuff. And right after that, I was like, "Hey, I got a podcast. You want to be on the podcast?" But it was
Absolutely.
that was the whole reason I sent you the friend request, because I wanted to check out your page and then see if you wanted to be on the podcast, because our podcast is filled with all kinds of different people that are into sport or fitness, health, things like that. So I mean, we've had bodybuilders, powerlifters, Olympic athletes. I mean, you name it, all kinds of different genres. So a wrestler would be cool. I have I guess you would call him former uncle-in-law. He was married to my aunt, and he's a underground wrestler. I don't know if he's still wrestling, but I've been trying to get him on, but I think he's shy or something. He never gets me on it. So anyway, so without further ado, let me welcome Michael Youngblood to the Barbell Life Show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Tony. That means a lot.
Definitely, man. Definitely. I grew up watching old school WWF. I was in the 80s, so my dad was big into wrestling, so I watched what he watched. And I remember first WrestleMania. I watched from all the 80s until about 96, 97. And that was back when Stone Cold was really big, and I think The Rock was starting to make a name, and then that's when
Rocky came out as Rocky Maivia.
Yeah, I remember that. I didn't like him. I'll admit it. I didn't like that dude. I hated his costume, everything. I was like, oh, this dude's corny. He's definitely evolved, and now he's the man.
He admits he didn't like the gimmick either. So
yeah, well, I know they did a play on what was his dad, right? Was Chief Maivia or something like that. I can't remember.
Grandfather's Chief Peter Maivia from Hawaii. His father is Rocky Johnson.
That's right, Rocky Johnson. Yeah.
Soul Man Rocky Johnson.
Yeah.
And by the way, Dwayne, if you see this, you still owe me $20, partner.
What's that all about?
Yeah, true story. $7 Productions was, which is his business, his company now, his film business. And he came to Kentucky. He actually came to Memphis and Louisville, Kentucky, Louisville Gardens, and he had like $7 to his name. And because his dad wasn't going to help him get into the business, he was going to let him learn on his own. And he pretty much ended up in Louisville, Kentucky, and wrestling there. And that's where I met him, along with Brian James, which is Road Dogg Jesse James, Double J Jeff Jarrett, and a guy by the name of Gorgeous George III, which is now the Stro. We loaned him some money because he really didn't have enough money to eat or live on. And we look out for one another. We're a band of brothers, and so we looked after him. But I'm just joking. He doesn't owe me the $20, but
$20. Anyway. Yeah. Well, it's funny because he was just out here. He came to the base, and they did a special screening of Jumanji, because I think Jumanji come out for Christmas. So he did a special screening for the Air Force Base, and popped in. I mean, it was real quick. He popped in the side door, said hi, thank you, gave a shout out to the troops and Robin Williams, and then I mean, it was like in and out, but it was still cool to see the guy. But yeah, we'll talk about giving back to the troops and stuff like that. I know you're big on that, but
absolutely.
Okay, so for everyone watching, Mike is a professional wrestler. How long you been in the game?
23 years and 4 months.
Damn, you don't even look that old, bro.
I don't feel that old either. I'm joking. I feel I'm 40. I'm 42 years old. I feel actually like I'm in my 20s. I have a few minor injuries that I work around that I have to, and that's why I stay in the gym like I do. And but I feel great, bro. All around, I feel great mentally, physically, and emotionally. Basically because of the gym and my wife, and staying grounded. She keeps me level. And if I tend to, veer off that course, she'll bring me back to, that straight path. So without her, without her being a part of who I am as either it be Michael Haywood or Michael Youngblood, the character, she keeps me level.
Nice. So that's where the term "your rock" comes from. And
exactly.
I learned that, man. You're right, though. If you have a good woman in your corner, she keeps you grounded. She keeps you humble. She keeps you keeps perspective in your life, which is good. So,
absolutely.
The wife. All right. So let's start from the beginning. Where are you from? Born and raised. Let's hear it.
I'm from a little small town in North Carolina. It's Laurinburg, North Carolina. I was born there July 26, 1975. And I was born into a loving family. And my mom and dad are awesome people. Mom's former military. My dad was a steel mill worker and became a structural supervisor for a company named Blue Scope Steel, and which he's retired from now. He was there 42 years, the same age I am. And, throughout my childhood, he would do part-time work as well to bring funding into the home. And so the spring and the summer, he would help promote Jim Crockett Promotions. And eventually, me being the only child at the time, my mom would be working, so he would have to take me on the road with him. And that's how I was introduced to professional wrestling, because he would promote these smaller towns, smaller venues for Jim Crockett Promotions and help push the marketing, advertising end of that business. And that's how I got to, see a little bit of wrestling at that time. And after growing up around that for several years, about 6 or 7 years old, I actually got to meet a lot of these wrestlers and be a part of the locker room, and then go out and sit by the ring. I mean, literally by the ring, like a foot or two away from it, and hold the championship belts while they're in the ring, wrestling for them. I got to do that as a child, and that was an honor and just a shock, because when you're 7 or 8 years old, you're like looking at these guys like they're gods, Greek gods and idols and whatnot. But I grew up around the wrestling business pretty much, and got to see a lot of the people in it, like Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, the Road Warriors.
Oh, that's my favorite tag team of all time, Road Warriors, or Legion of Doom.
The Legion of Doom.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll touch on that here in a little bit, as far as some of the experience you've had since you've been in the wrestling world, some of the people you grew up meeting and knowing, and some of those stories. So you said North Carolina.
Yep.
Were you into sports as a kid? Anything like that?
I was, and I loved baseball.
Okay.
Loved it. I played shortstop. I played third base, and I started out playing baseball. Then it led to Little League football. And it was, I was a small kid at the time. I was not the average kid on the block. I was a little smaller than everybody else. And then I ended up having a few injuries, and it scared me. It scared me away from playing football, but I continued to play it all throughout, my childhood into high school, whatnot, and as well as baseball. But at about 7th grade, I fell in love with wrestling. I went to this wrestling tournament, and there was I cannot remember the guy's name, but he was an Olympic wrestler. I cannot think of his name. I apologize. And he's the one that actually introduced me to amateur wrestling and Greco-Roman freestyle. And I just fell in love with the art of it. And it was a one-on-one competition. And at that time, I really didn't like being a team player. I wanted to do something on my own. And, and you know what I mean? So, and it just bloomed from there. And I fell in love with amateur wrestling and did that and competed all throughout middle school, high school, went to the state championships. I never won the state championships. I placed second and third the 2 years that I did go to state. I did win all conference. And then I did open division wrestling, where I was a Tar Heel State Classic champion on several occasions, which was an honor. Truly was an honor. And I learned a lot. And I did a lot of in the summertime, my father would send me to these wrestling camps in Appalachian State, Michigan State, Iowa Hawkeyes, their facility up there. And that's what I would do in the summertime to better myself, because my goal was to go to the Olympics. I did participate with the national team, the U.S. national team, in amateur wrestling, freestyle wrestling, and I ended up getting injured. I tore a hamstring, so that kind of cut things short. But that was my main goal. My main purpose was to go to the Olympics, because I was really good at it. I mean, I really was. I excelled at it, and in my heart and my mind, and I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Now,
but, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean, but throughout that whole process, I learned self-discipline, and I learned a lot about the grappling game as a whole. Self-defense first and foremost, because about the bullying. I've already told you about the bullying throughout my childhood. So with the wrestling, it helped me in a lot of different areas, not just on the mat.
Yeah, that's why they try to say, put your kids in sports, because it builds a lot of character, teaches teamwork and and things like that. Now you mentioned, what's that?
I'm sorry. No, go ahead. It helped me become a better person. It really did. The training aspect of it, and the coaches, mainly the coaches. I had a coach by the name of Coach Blunt. I'll never forget him. God rest his soul. He was not just a coach, but he was a teacher and a philosopher. And he taught me a lot about life and how to be a better person. And that was the main goal he tried to instill in us as wrestlers or as athletes. And a lot about education and the importance of education and where it will lead us, in the future. So he was a great coach.
A lot of sports too, the coaching is so important, because you got that mentor as a young kid. And a lot of kids, where they come from broken homes, they don't have a father figure in their house. A lot of these coaches, they play that role. So shout out to your coach. Now you mentioned, you weren't that big as a kid. You were a little undersized. What are we looking at? Like how tall, how much did you weigh, things like that?
I was probably up until about 13 or 14 years old. No, actually about 15. I was about 5'8", 5'9", and I really didn't hit my growth spurt until I was about 15. Okay. And that's when Coach Blunt introduced me to the weights. Okay. Because we got to get you bigger, kid. You're thin as a rail. I was probably 142 and out of shape. And if it wasn't for him getting me in shape, and this took several years. I mean, this was a 4-year project. And by the time it was all said and done, I went from 142 up to 171 pounds. And I grew to about 5'11", believe it or not. And then I'm actually 6'1" now, but we're talking about high school here. And he got me hooked on the weights, training, and trying to bulk up. And thanks to him, I put on the size, and I became a better athlete, better conditioned. and just an all-around better person because I felt better about myself.
Confidence,
I felt confidence level, and I could see I was progressing as the years went by, and it took time. And a lot of people don't understand it takes time to better yourself in the gym or on the playing field, whether it be football, baseball, wrestling, boxing, whatever it may be. You have to put in the time to reach those goals that you're shooting for, and you have to have that mindset.
Now, before you start actually growing, is that when you experienced a lot of the bullying?
Yeah, I was picked on quite a bit because the wrestling T-shirts we could buy as a kid, like Hulkamania and Macho Man Randy Savage and
Ultimate Warrior, all that,
Ultimate Warrior. I would wear a lot of those T-shirts to school, and because I loved wrestling. I mean, I was a wrestling fan. I genuinely loved the sport. I thought it was real, which it is real. And I would get picked on. Oh, you think you're big and bad because you're on the wrestling team or the football team, and you're wearing these shirts. I've actually, would have kids come up to me and rip my shirt off of me.
Wow.
That's how bad the bullying was. I would, it would be 4 or 5 of them, and they would catch me in one of the halls by myself, and they would bully me around, pick on me. And one particular incident, I had an injury. I think I did something to my leg, but I was on crutches. And I was on my way to wrestling practice, not to participate, but to be in the room, to be involved. And I was going around the back side of the gym to get there faster. And there was a group of guys, maybe 10, 12 of them. And they literally, excuse my language, they literally beat the shit out of me. And
just after huh?
Yeah. And nobody would help me. And there was people all around watching this. And nobody would help me. It really, really put a hurting on me. To this day, I don't know why it happened. And I can't figure out why they would do that, but they did that to me. And but still, it doesn't bother me, unless I let it. Of course, I think about like that from time to time. And so I get myself up. I was actually knocked out. And then a girl and a guy helped me get up and get to the wrestling room area where we practiced. And coach looked at me and saw what was, I had been beat up. And then that day forward, I said, this will never, ever happen to me again. And so from that day forward, I became an animal. I became a beast. And my mentality was to just, if someone ever approaches me that way again, I'm going to take your head off. And that's when I got into mixed martial arts, judo. And my mom and dad, I begged my mom and dad, please let me learn how to actually fight, defend myself, protect myself. And it went from wrestling to judo to boxing, then into mixed martial arts. I've never competed in mixed martial arts, but I have been trained in those areas. And like I said, I would never let that ever happen to me or anybody else again. It's just ridiculous.
With this training that you started taking on, and at the same time putting on muscle, growing in size, did you ever get redemption? Did you ever see these guys again, or get in another situation?
I caught the one guy that actually, I don't know. I don't know the guy's name. I did catch him on the street some years later. This was after I turned pro in professional wrestling. Oh yeah. And he knew who I was, and I knew his face. And it was in a convenience store. I'll never forget it. I let him leave the convenience store. I went and got in my car and parked on the opposite side of the building. Got out my car, and I waited on him to come out. And I beat the brakes off this guy. And when I said I beat the brakes off of him, I mean, the cops were involved. And I beat his, excuse my language, I beat his ass.
Yeah.
And then I wrote him. I said, you remember me? I said, you remember what you did to me, you and your friends? I said, payback's a motherfucker. So and I commenced to whipping his ass.
Well, what karma, man? What goes around comes around. It might take years, but yeah.
Karma is a beautiful thing.
Nice, nice. So obviously, you're very against bullying. I mean,
yes.
Now we have this whole anti-bullying thing. Back when we were kids, that was just day-to-day life. You either one of the bullies, one of the bystanders, or you were getting bullied. I mean, I've experienced being bullied. Even growing up, I was always pretty small myself. So I mean, I know what it was like trying to hide out and not get seen and living in fear. And it's ridiculous, man. And I'm glad that they're actually trying to do something about it now.
Right.
But what is your take? Like, what do you think? What's a way around this and way people can? You're never going to get rid of it, but sometimes somehow minimize it and deal with the issue.
Right. Honestly, I mean, I have a very good friend. I do a lot of anti-bullying campaigns. I have in the past. I haven't done anything recently within the last year, but I have a good friend who's an MMA fighter, Shannon the Cannon Rich.
Okay.
He's a really good friend of mine, and I talk to him on the regular. And we're trying to get together very soon where we can go out and do anti-bullying campaigns. He does them weekly.
Right.
And we're trying to, with the Wrestle Kings 3 Productions and the Veterans Freedom Project, we're trying to do a lot of different things, so to speak. But anti-bullying projects, that's the number one thing that we're looking at. And we're going to eventually go to these schools, middle schools, because I think that's mostly where it starts. And then work our way up into the high schools and let these guys know that this is not right. This is very unstable attitude. You don't need to mistreat anyone. If you're feeling bad about yourself, don't take it out on someone else. If someone's smaller than you and you got a chip on your shoulder and you want to pick on that guy or that girl, and I think girls get it the worst, to be honest. And it's sad. It's sad, and it doesn't need to happen. We're all in this together, and we all need to be one. We're one race, bottom line, and we need to love each other. We need to care about each other. Agreed. And it needs to stop. It really does. This bullying needs to stop. Cyberbullying is another thing that I hate.
I always say I'm so glad all this social media and all this stuff, the internet wasn't around when I was a kid, because I know I would have got it bad from some of these guys. And now it's, you not only get your ass kicked, there's people doing Facebook Lives and recording it and put it on YouTube and tagging you and just, it's 10 times worse than how we had it. Before you could just get your ass kicked and people would talk about it. But to get out there like that, it's like, geez. But much respect for you doing that. I definitely want to get involved. Let me know some things that you end up doing. The Barbell Life community, we pride ourselves in being different. So part of starting the whole community, I would go to other fitness groups because, you're into fitness, you like to talk to other people and you like to be around people that are into the same things as you. So I would go to these other fitness communities online, and you get on there and you post a picture or you ask a question or you post a video or whatever. And sure enough, people start coming out the woodworks and, oh, that's weak. That's all you got. Or, oh, you need to work on your calves or, whatever. There's always some trolls and always someone pretty much bullying, and so part of making the Barbell Life, I wanted to make a community where it was just like the mindset you talked about, positivity and unity and supporting each other and a brotherhood, sisterhood. And so you definitely epitomize, the values that we try to instill in this brand. So much love to you. And like I said, definitely keep me posted on that.
I will. And I want Barbell Nutrition. I want Tony Camper to be a part of a lot of things that we're going to be doing with the project I've got going on. And I would love to be part of that.
I'm here, man. Like I said, beautiful thing.
You're an inspiration to me, brother. That's the goddamn truth. My wife loves you to death. She thinks you're a cool dude. especially in the political realm. And
the red
we
pill.
love you to death. I've only known you a short period of time, but I feel your vibe through this screen. And you have this glow on you, bro. And it's a positive thing. You have the perfect attitude, perfect mindset. You're an intelligent human being. And we love you to death. We thank you. And we thank Barbell Nutrition. And together, we're going to do great things.
Definitely, man. Well, I appreciate it. Somehow the podcast became about me. I got to turn it back to you now.
Go ahead.
Star of the podcast today. So much love to you. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
What I want to touch on is you said a lot of the fights you got into as a kid were because you're biracial. There was a little bit of prejudice growing up from where you were from. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Well, I have together. There's three of us boys. My two brothers, Jason and Jeremy. My baby brother is biracial. I'm Native American. My mother had another child who half black, half Native American, and some Caucasian, and he was the baby boy. And we grew up kind of well-to-do. You know, well, I'll say we had it made, but we grew up in a well-to-do family financially. Yeah. And the neighborhood that we grew up in were predominantly white. And not saying all white like this, because I don't look at it like that, but I would be away. I'm 12 years older than the baby boy. So at that time I was wrestling professionally, and I would be away, and I would come home on the weekends that I didn't have to wrestle. And, I would see my brother with a black eye or cuts on him, or, he just wasn't acting like my brother. Something was wrong, and I knew something had been done to him. So I went to my parents and I said, hey, what happened to my brother? And they couldn't answer it because they couldn't get it out of him. So I finally took my brother one day to the side, and I remember we sat down in my mom's swing in the backyard, and I started talking to him, trying to get into his head. And I said, tell me a little bit about what's going on in your life. And he would tell me, he would say, Mike, and he broke down crying. It bothers me right now thinking about it. Mm-hmm. But he said, I got all these kids picking on me, calling me nigger, or calling me brown boy. I said, they calling you what? He said, yeah, they call my nickname's Brown Boy. And I said, well, how did this happen? I tried to get in his head to figure out who's doing this. We got to put a stop to it. It's what I'm thinking. But I'm not telling him this. And he said, just all the kids in the neighborhood. I said, okay. And he loved to skateboard at the time, too. He was big into skating. So I took a week off from wrestling just to spend time with him. And wherever he would go, I would, figure out where he was going, then I would follow him at a distance, not letting him know I was doing this, to see and to catch this. And finally, one day I did catch it. And there was like a group of kids, maybe 4 or 5 kids. They were at this park skating. It's a basketball court, actually. They were skating on the basketball court. And I walked over and sat down on the bench, and he saw me. I saw him. I didn't conversate with him. And I heard one of the guys call him Brown Boy. And it just lit a fire under my ass. And I approached these kids, and I let them know. I said, do you know who I am? I said, I'm Brown Boy's brother. By the way, his name is Jeremy. I said, if I ever hear that word come out of your mouth, or the word nigger come out of your mouth, I said, I don't care how old you are, I'll knock your teeth out. I said, I don't know how you were raised. I said, I was raised to respect people, regardless of color, creed, religion, whatever. You respect a human being for who they are. We are all the same. Cut you open right now, kid. What color are you going to bleed? You're going to bleed the same color as me, red. I said, so you might as well get yourself in line, check yourself. I said, because you're dealing with a person that will break you in half. I said, don't ever, ever disrespect my brother again. And he had no more issues after that.
That was it, huh?
And I grabbed my brother by the arm, and I looked at him. I said, let me tell you something, Jeremy. I said, you defend yourself. You step up to the plate. You protect who you are, where you come from. You stand your ground. You stand firm. You don't ever, ever let anybody humiliate, degrade you or your family. We're all in this together. And from that day forward, he did exactly what I told him to do. He didn't let anybody run over him. And I'm proud of him.
And that's the perfect example right there of why we need more people to step up and speak out against this kind of stuff. You know, if only everyone had their own, you know, Michael Youngblood to come help them out like that. But I mean, anyone can do it. Anyone can step up and have people's back. So anyone, you know, most people are adults by now, but I mean, you even see bullying in the adult world, you know. So
I see it in the locker room.
Yeah,
I see it in the locker room all the time, and it's sad. And I'm the type of person, and I can name a few names: The Undertaker, which is Mark Calloway, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Ric Flair, for example. They don't put up with stuff like that. I've seen them step up to the plate and say, "Hey, you got a problem with this guy? You got a problem with the locker room? We're a family, guys." And it's not dealt with in the wrestling business, kind of like I handled it that day with my brother. In the wrestling business, they'll pull you to the side and beat your ass, and that's the end of
it. I love it. I mean, that's how it should be, man. People should look out for each other, and a big part of the whole thing is not just the bullies, but the people who sit along and just let it happen, or the people who sit along and pull out their phones and start recording or egging it on and cheering, you know, like they're just responsible as the person doing the bullying. So
and I think it's got a lot to do with it. I think it's got a lot to do with their upbringing.
Psychological.
Yeah, and my children were not raised that way. You know, growing up in my family, we just weren't raised that way. We didn't know the color of skin. You know, we weren't. My mother was as white as cotton. Okay. My dad is your complexion. My grandfather was the color of coal. No joke.
Okay.
And you know, it's just a crying shame that this exists in the world that we live in today. I mean, this is 2017. We should be able to look at one another and say, "Hey, how are you today?" Or, you know, "Hey, brother, I don't know you, but I love you. You know, hope you're having a good day. God bless you." You know, so forth and so on.
Well, it all starts with one person, and it's infectious. You know, you teach love, and people are taught hate. They're taught, you know, all these prejudice and all this other stuff. So all you can do is just be the change you want to see, and spread love and welcome everybody, and hopefully set the example for other people. So
all that. Thank you. All that is it's a learned behavior, and it's a behavior that needs to be broken.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. So when you left high school and you moved and you entered the adult realm,
right?
What were you doing? I know you were into sports still. You're still wrestling. Were you trying to get a scholarship, anything like that, or what?
I actually got 2 offers. I got 2 athletic scholarships. I was a fairly decent student. I had B's, C's, few D's, but that was on me. I'm not gonna say I was a lazy student. I just had no interest in the classroom. I really didn't. And I felt like I wasn't being taught the truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I can work with numbers all day long, but I felt like, and I was a great history student, but I felt like I wasn't being fed the proper education that I know of today, what really exists. Because I went out on my own and basically taught myself what I know today through real education, real books, real knowledge, not lies, truth. But when I was coming out of high school, I think I was a junior, and I had this itch, man. I had this itch. I wanted to be a professional wrestler. And that bug, man, it just crawled all over me, and it just ate me up. So what I ended up eventually doing was I went to my mom and dad had bought me a brand new car, and it was a Mitsubishi Eclipse. And I had my cousin with me, Etzel Newberry. And I said, hey, man, let's take a ride. So we ended up riding to Charlotte, North Carolina, where there was a wrestling school that I had heard about. And my dad happened to be friends with a guy that ran it. His name was Ivan Koloff. And he is a former WWE world champion.
I remember.
And yep. And I went and knocked on the door because I couldn't, I didn't see any cars outside. All the cars were in the back, so I was parked in the front. And I'm wanting to get inside the school so I can talk to somebody to see how I could go about getting into the business. Well, Ivan, obviously opened up the door, and I'm standing in front of this ledge and not knowing what to say. I freeze up.
So you reckon right off the bat, huh?
Right off the bat.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing him as a child and being around him as a child as well. And he invited me in. He said, come on in, guys. What can I do? How can I help you? And I said, I'd like to become a professional wrestler. And the first thing he asked me was, how old are you? I said, 17. And he says, okay, you got to leave now. And I said, are you serious? He said, yes, you have to leave. He says, are you in high school? Still in high school? I said, yes. He says, I'll tell you what. You graduate from high school. Bring me back your diploma. Show me you graduated from high school. He says, and I'll think about letting you train. I was like, okay. So I finished out my junior year. That summer, I told my mother, I was begging my mother, please let me go to a private school so I can graduate ahead of time so I can go and get, involved in wrestling. Mm-hmm. So she got me involved in the private school called the American School of the Arts. And it's based out of Chicago, Illinois. And she sent me there, and I graduated in 8 weeks. Got my diploma.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. And at this time, I'm having these scholarship offers come at me too. So I'm having a choice. And then I've got my mom on this side of me. I got my dad on this side. You're going to school. You're going to go wrestle professionally because, I got one parent saying go wrestle professionally. You got one parent saying, hey, you're going to college to wrestle. So that's how it kind of, it was like a tug of war. So finally I said no.
Your mom wanted you to become a professional wrestler, and your dad wanted you to be a collegiate wrestler.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was kind of in the middle there, and I didn't know which way to go. So what I ended up doing, I left home because I didn't want to be in the mix of that little war that was going on. I left home. I had got a job as a forklift driver, and I started saving up my money, and by this time I had my diploma. And I went back to the school, and I remember I pulled up in front of the school, and I sat there for maybe 30 minutes, scared to death, thinking he's going to turn me down if when I knocked on the door and I showed him the diploma. I said, he's going to turn me down. I'm not big enough. At that time I probably weighed 189 pounds. Mm. And these guys that were going in the school were like 300-pound guys, 6'6", 6'7". They were monsters. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I mustered up the guts, and I went to the door and pounded on it. He came to the door. I said, hey, sir, do you remember me? He says, actually, yes, I do. I said, well, here's my diploma. I graduated high school. And he just looked at me and shook his head. He said, well, come on in, and brought me to his office. And he wanted me to tell him a little bit about myself. I told him what was going on at home. And he actually turned me down again. He was like, I think you need to go to college. I was like, look, I don't want to go to college. I don't like school. I don't like dealing with classrooms. I'm sitting there twiddling my thumbs while I'm in the classroom. And this is how I'm explaining it to him. He says, okay, kid, you want to be a wrestler? Do you bring any, he said, did you bring any workout clothes with you? I said, yes, sir, I sure did. He said, go get them. And so I went and got dressed. He took me to the ring. He says, you see that ring right there? I said, yes, sir. He said, you're never going to touch it until you complete my course. I was like, okay. He made me do 1,000 standing squats. I had to do 500 sit-ups. I had to do at least 20 pull-ups. I did the sit-ups. I did the pull-ups. I didn't quite make it through the standing squats, though.
Yeah.
He says, all right, you're done.
Like, I don't know if I could do that shit.
Yeah. He says, okay, you're done. Come back tomorrow. Be here at this time. So I came back the next day. He says, I think we were at 600 standing squats. He says, you owe me 400 more. So I had to finish the 400 standing squats. And then he took me to a place called Independence Arena, which is in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is where they held the first, I don't know if they held the first Starrcade there, where Ric Flair won the belt against Harley Race. But anyway, this building's huge, massive. He said, you see those steps there? He says, I want you to run those steps. Oh, no problem. I do that. He says, no, I want you to run all these steps. He said, I want you to start on this side and go all the way around the building and complete it and meet me back here. And it took me about 2 hours, 2.5 hours to complete that, and I was puking. Now he said, I want 500 standing squats.
This is
I had
after.
to do it. Right.
Oh, wow.
He says, you've got 30 minutes to give me 500 standing squats. By this minute, I'm puking. I'm sweating. I'm nauseous. I'm on my knees, and I'm thinking, God, how am I going to make it through this? There's no way I'm going to do this. But I did it because I wanted it that bad. And he says, okay, come back next week. We'll start your training. And that's when I finally got to get in the ring and start learning the wrestling business, or learning what goes on in the ring. And that following week, we learned how to run the ropes. And those ropes, what people don't understand about those ropes, they're cables. That's all they are. They're cables, and they're encased with a thin plastic that will cut you open if you hit them wrong. And so the insides of my arms and my lats were cut open. And he would make me run those back and forth and hit those ropes constantly for hours on end. And I'm puking again. And of course, you would get breaks and stuff, but
Yeah.
so I would do that. And I did that for 3-4 days before I even started taking bumps. Bumps meaning falls on the mat, learning how to fall properly.
Yeah.
And then finally he got me to where I could learn how to bump. You tuck and roll forward. You would fall face down, kind of like burpees. He would have me doing burpees. And I would do burpees, oh my God, all day long at Simba. And what he was doing, he was trying to break me. He was trying to make me quit.
That's what I was thinking when you were telling the story. I was like, he sounded like he wanted you to decide this isn't for you and take up the college offer.
Right. And he couldn't break me. And he knew he couldn't break me. And I had all these bruises and cuts, and I was feeling them out. I felt like I was broken, honestly. My body felt broken. And so he gave me a week off. He says, come back in a week. We're going to start your training. He said, you want it? I'm going to give it to you. And he didn't charge me a dime. The normal process at that time was like $3,000, and you go to school for a year. Yeah. And that was in 1994. Or 93, excuse me, 1993. And he said, you keep this between you and me. I'm not even going to charge you. He says, I see something in you that I don't see in these other guys. He says, so you keep this on the down low pretty much. He says, and I'm going to train you. And he trained me himself. And that was rare. But yeah. And he didn't do that with other guys. So after about a year of private training between him and I, he said, I remember him mentioning to me, what is your goal? What do you want from this? I said, I want to be a world champion. I want to wrestle in the NWA, WCW. Mm-hmm. I never said once WWF. And he kind of looked at me weird. He says, oh, that's what you really, really want? I said, yes. So a few months go by. I'm still training. I'm still learning how to wrestle. By this time, we're actually doing wrestling. We're actually, learning how to grab the guy, slam the guy, protect him, drop elbows without hurting him, the whole process. And he comes to me one day, he pulls me into his office. He says, I'm going to send you to the WWE. And I was 19 years old at that time. And I'm shocked. I'm just literally shocked. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to the WWE. So I had to sign paperwork agreeing that, well, this is how much you're going to get paid. This is my percentage for booking you. And then that's how I actually got into the WWE, was through Ivan Koloff. And he worked that out with a guy named Tony Gurria, Rene Goulet. I don't know if he's, if you remember them. And that's where I met Pat Patterson, a Hall of Fame legend, and Gerald Briscoe. And they basically booked me solid for 2 years, from 94 to 96. And that's when I started actually learning how to work in front of a TV, a TV monitor, a camera, whether it be cutting promos, or what they call vignettes. We call them vignettes. Getting in the ring and learning how to actually work. You have cameras on. And that was really, really difficult. That was really hard because I'd never done that before. Mm-hmm. And my very first match was in the WWF at that time, now WWE.
Yeah.
And that's how the wrestling business actually started for me. And I learned a lot in that time frame from 94 to 96 from a lot of great wrestlers.
That's got to be difficult to go straight to the pros like that. Because, I mean, if you think about it, WWF, that's the creme de la creme of the wrestling scene as far as, big time. So were you super nervous? Anything like that?
My first match, I wrestled Razor Ramon.
The
bad guy.
Yeah.
Hello, Chico. I remember that. I remember, I'm going to break, I don't know if you know what kayfabe is. Kayfabe in our business is keeping everything hush-hush.
Okay.
That's what kayfabe means. So I'm going to break kayfabe right now. I was in the locker room, standing there with Razor Ramon, looking straight up at him because he's 6'6", and he looks at me, he says, "Hey, kid, you're working with me tonight. I got one rule." "Yes, sir." He said, "Listen to everything I tell you. If you don't, I will take your head off." "Yes, sir." And that's how it started. My very first match was against Scott Hall, which is Razor Ramon. Yeah. And he gave me one thing to do in that match. He says, "Duck my clothesline. If you do not duck my clothesline, I will rip your head off." I remember that. And I said, "Yes, sir." And he called that whole match from the beginning to the end. He told me everything to do, how to do it. And in the match, when he was going to shoot me into the ropes and I was coming back for the clothesline, he says, "Kid, duck my clothesline." Shot me to the ropes. I come back, I duck the clothesline, beautiful. Hit him with a cross body. He caught me and held. He says, "Now, Chico, we taking it home. And we're going to taking it home. We're going to go to 1, 2, 3." And brother, that mat at that time was like falling on concrete. So he throws me back over his head, and I'm flying through the air, by the way, 8, 9 feet in the air. This is how strong this guy is. I hit the canvas, and all I can do is suck wind. It knocked the wind right out of me. He then grabs me, picks me up, sets me on the top rope, facing the crowd, gets behind me, looks at the crowd, does his little Razor Ramon gimmick, belly to backs me off the top rope. That knocks the wind out of me. I got a concussion, by the way.
From that?
He says, all right, here comes the Razor's Edge. Go with me. Go with me, meaning he's going to pick me up. He wants me to set up on his shoulders.
Yeah.
That way he can position me out. That way he doesn't hurt me. Uh-huh. And then he launches me. And my mom was watching it live on TV. She said, "Son, you look like the Bounty commercial." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "When you hit the mat, you look like that Bounty falling into that towel." And that was it. He hit me with the Razor's Edge, pinned me 1, 2, 3. And I remember thinking, God, I'm so happy this is over with. I said, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to do this for a living? He beat the literal shit out of me. It was not pulling punches. It was not pulling kicks. Everything he did to me was real. And what he was doing was he wanted to see how tough I was. He wanted to see if I wanted to be a professional wrestler. And lo and behold, Ivan Koloff had talked to these guys prior and said, break his spirit. If you can break his spirit, you got him. But if you can't break his spirit, I couldn't do it. I don't think you can do it. But try to break his spirit. So like my first 10 matches, these guys literally, excuse my language, beat the hell out of me. And I didn't quit. I didn't give up.
What guys were you going against? Because that's pretty awesome. Your very first match is Razor Ramon, Scott Nash.
Yeah, I went from we were in Ocean City, Maryland when I wrestled Razor. And then we went to Poughkeepsie, New York. I wrestled The Undertaker. And he was like, yeah, he was stiff in the ring with me, but he took care of me. He didn't try to hurt me. I wrestled Mental Admission, which is Mabel and Mo, which Mabel became Viscera later on. Owen Hart, I worked with Bob Backlund, who was a WWE World Champion. The two that I remember most was Kevin Nash, Big Sexy, and Shawn Michaels. And I had a match with those guys. And at the time, Shawn had a broke hand. Okay. And all he could really do was, make a tag, come in, super kick you, and pin you pretty much. And I remember getting in the ring with Kevin Nash. And this guy's 7 feet tall, by the way, 350 pounds at the time. I probably weighed 200 pounds, 6'1", 6'1" with my wrestling boots on. I'm 6 foot actually. And I remember this guy picking me up over his head. I had to be at least 9 feet in the air. And he hit me with his finisher, which was the jackhammer. So at this time, I'm thinking, okay, they're going to take it home. They're going to pin me 1, 2, 3. No, he didn't do that. He tagged Shawn in. Shawn comes in, and he starts stomping that foot. He's getting ready to hit me with the sweet chin music. So I knew by that time I had to stand up and feed myself into his kick. And when he kicked me, he about kicked my head off. And that was the last match that I had where they literally, they broke me into the business is what they were doing.
Yeah, you're the new guy on the block, so you had to earn your stripes, yeah.
Right. And I remember after the match, I went to the locker room, and Shawn come over to me and said, "Great match, kid. Proud of you." And then Kevin Nash walked over to where I was at when I was getting my payday. I got paid $250 for that match. He walked over to me and handed me 2 more $100 bills. He says, "Thank you, kid. Welcome to the WWF." And just bloomed from there. And that's how
let me pull up some pictures that I got from your competing, because we can talk about it all day, but to actually see it is another thing.
Yeah, that picture there was taken in 1997. I worked for a promoter named Greg Price. The guy that you see me drop elbow on is actually Billy Kidman, who is a for the WWE now.
Okay.
Yeah, that was in Williamston, North Carolina. And this right here, what you see is Kurt Angle and myself. That was in 2005.
Okay.
It was called the Angle Invitational, which was his first ever ladder match. And anybody that knows this, have seen this match. Kurt Angle actually knocked 7 teeth out of my mouth in this match.
No shit.
No shit. My jaw teeth.
How did that happen?
It was just a freak accident. He was going to give me a forearm during the match, and I thought he was coming from the right side. He actually came from the left side, and as he was, I was expecting it from the right, but I turned left, and as I turned left, his forearm and his wrist, that wrist bone, that pointy part of the wrist, hit me straight in the jaw, and it knocked all my jaw teeth out on my left side of my face. It broke them off. And I had that.
Wrestling's fake. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? But after that, he, they sent me to the doctor, obviously. I had my mouth fixed, but and this picture here is of me with NWA Charlotte, which is Charlotte, North Carolina. I was pretty over there. I was a fan favorite. and I was wrestling this night Phil Shatters, and for the NWA TV title, I think it was for the TV title. This was in 2007, 2008.
Okay. Yeah, you look like as the years progress, you got a lot bigger.
Lot bigger. This picture here was taken in Dallas, Texas. Wrestled. I was the North American heavyweight champion. I probably weighed about 250 in that picture. I was at my best, and shortly after that, I ended up losing that title because I had to go in between holding this title. I was also wrestling in Puerto Rico as well. And so I had to end up dropping the belt to go back to Puerto Rico to wrestle for Carlos Colon, who is the father of Carlito Colon, a Caribbean guy. It comes out, bites the apple, and spits it in people's faces. He's also the father of Eddie Colon, which is Primo.
Okay.
These guys still actually work with Vince at the WWE. Great people. I learned so much in the WWE when I was there. I was, like I said, from 94 to 96, I was there constantly. And that's when I got most of my ring time. And I was what they call a jobber. I would make the stars look good. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, they were polishing me. They were polishing me to bring me up later on as possibly a star or a mid-carder. That was the initial plan. And that never did happen, never did go through because of politics. Politics plays a huge part. Yeah, politics plays a huge part in the wrestling business. They were actually wanting to put me with Tatanka as a tag team. And because my native heritage, I had the long jet black hair and I fit the bill. And due to politics, I think we worked maybe 3 matches together as a tag team, and then they squashed it. And I can't really go into why that happened because I don't want a lawsuit. But it was politics, and put it like this: it was me outshining the main star of the tag team, and I'll leave it at that.
You know what's funny is I think I remember that short-lived tag team thing. Like I said, I was really into wrestling as a kid, and I remember that. And sometimes with wrestling, something will be going on, and then it just disappears, and they don't even close nothing. It just act like it never happened.
And you know what was funny about that when I was leaving the WWE, I had no clue I was leaving. I remember I was in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which was my last match with those guys. That was actually me. It was actually me and Chris Chavis, Tatanka. And it was a tag match, and a horrible match. But then, not as far as like in ring, but just the psychology of the match and trying to get the fans into it, which they were, should have been. Because the way it was scripted and wrote out to be, it should have been a huge pop, but it wasn't. And 2 weeks later, I received my notice. And from there, I just went back to the independent scene and overseas to Japan and Puerto Rico and so forth and so on.
Well, it seems like a lot of wrestlers follow that route too. They do a lot of overseas stuff, a lot of the underground circuit. I didn't know this about you till you told me that you went straight to the WWF. Pretty awesome. A lot of guys. It's hard. From what I've talked to people, it's hard to break in and get to the high level like that. So, you must have been riding a high to be able to fulfill that goal, to make it to the WWF and fight against all these, Hall of Fame wrestlers. You said The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash.
Kevin Nash.
Amazing. You had mentioned offline, you were talking about talking to Ric Flair. Now, is this a pretty common thing where you've interacted and met with a lot of big name Hall of Famers and either got mentored or just got to hang out, have experiences with these guys?
Actually, I'll tell you three quick stories. First time I met Ric Flair, my bag was in this locker room, and I had just finished wrestling. Well, Ric Flair was in the room that I was dressing in. He didn't know it was my locker room, but he went in there to sit down to discuss business with Stephanie McMahon and Triple H. And I had no clue that these three were in this room because the door was shut, and that was the way I left it. So I go in to get my bag, and I see them sitting there talking, and Triple H is standing to my left, Stephanie's sitting to my right, and Ric Flair's in the center. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. I quickly step out of the room because I didn't want to be, rude and interfere what they were talking about. Yeah. And Rick says, hey, kid, hey, who the hell are you? I was like, oh, hell. So I go back, I step into the room. I said, yes, sir. He said, what are you doing coming in here? And Paul, which is Triple H, says, no, Rick, he's good. He's cool. He's cool. He says, I just came to, I'm telling him, I'm stuttering too, like I'm stuttering now. Yeah. I'm standing in front of Ric Flair, and he's asking me, what the hell are you doing in my locker room? And I don't know what to say to him well, I apologize, sir. I didn't mean to be, rude or, I just wanted to get my bag. And I look over at Stephanie first before I even start talking to him and say, how are you, ma'am? How are you doing today? And then when I said that to her, they kind of like looked at me like, okay, sign of respect. He says, well, when we get through talking, you can get your bag, because my bag was behind him. I said, yes, sir, absolutely. I left the room. So about an hour later, they come out of this room, and he comes up to me laughing. He said, I was only messing with you, kid. I was only joking with you. He said, I just wanted to see who you were and what you were doing. And he gave me a hug. He said, it's okay, man. He says, I'm not an asshole. He said, we were just discussing business. He says, but you can get your bag now. And that's how I actually met Ric Flair face to face for the first time as far as a conversation. And then later that
go ahead.
Later that night, he invited me out to the bar, and we had several rounds that he actually paid for, apologizing. That was his way of apologizing. So and I had a great conversation with him. We didn't talk or discuss anything about wrestling, and it was just party. And I think we partied for 5 or 6 hours. And it's true what they say about Ric Flair. He is the nature boy. He had all the girls with him. He had all the money. And he had shots lined up all the way down the bar. And you got to figure out, this time that was in 2005. Okay. And what you got to remember too, my mouth is killing me at this moment. So all that liquor we drank actually helped numb it.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so that's the first experience.
Ric Flair was this is somebody you looked up to growing up, and someone.
Oh, absolutely.
As a young wrestler, that must have been surreal to actually be hanging out with Ric Flair and taking shots. Someone you looked up to all those years. Yeah,
and he was bigger than life, man. Rick is a really good guy. He really is. He has had his issues, but Rick was a genuine person. When you got to talk to him, he really talked to you like we're talking right now. He's not really an arrogant, conceited guy. That is a character, but to him, he is Ric Flair. Mm-hmm. He's lived it for 40 years. Mm-hmm. So he was wrestling before I was even born. Mm-hmm. I think he started in 72. So he lived that character, and I don't think he knew how to actually come out of being Ric Flair and being Richard Morgan Flair. Mm-hmm. But, there are other 2 instances where I met him recently at SmackDown and Raw, and had wonderful conversations with him, which, he's in a sober state now. He doesn't drink anymore. And I sat down with him because I sat away from him, actually, and he called me over to him, and I was like, me? Like, yeah, you come here. And I sat down and talked to him, and he says, how are you doing, man? He said, I haven't seen you in a while. He actually recognized me, knew who I was. And nice. He's like, you know what? You really look good, man. He says, you look really good. I saw you today in your tryouts. He said, I just wanted to tell you, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. He says, I see something there. He says, I see something big. He says, and I think you can do it because you know how to wrestle first and foremost. He says, get your mic work down. Get that mic work down. And he was really adamant about being able to handle yourself on a microphone because that's how you sell yourself as the product, Michael Youngblood. And he says, he gave me a few pointers. And he says, you got that it factor. And don't let anybody tell you that you don't. He says, I saw it today for myself. And that was like coming from Ric Flair. I didn't know how to take it. It kind of got teary-eyed. And I remember I gave him a hug and I said, thank you, Rick. I said, I just want to tell you one thing. I said, from the very first time I saw you at 4 or 5 years old, I said, I knew I wanted to be a professional wrestler. You are the reason I wanted to be a part of what we're doing today. I said, thank you. I thank you. And I hugged his neck. And that was the last time I saw Rick. And that was 3 weeks ago. I have the utmost respect for Ric Flair.
Definitely. To have a legend tell you he sees something in you and you have the it factor, that's huge.
Yeah.
So you were at a WWE tryout?
Yeah, I actually went to the tryout, and it's kind of funny. I was accepted. I was accepted right into the door from the time I walked through, shaking hands with everybody, introducing myself, with the agents, the promoters. When I say agents, are the road agents like Michael Hayes, Arn Anderson, Paul, I can't think of his name, even Paul Levesque, which is Triple H. Everybody welcomed me with open arms. Fit Finley, who I have a lot of respect for because he's a catch-can wrestler. He's a real wrestler. From England or Ireland. And he sat me down and talked to me and wanted to know a little more about me. And Mike Rotunda, which is he's a Syracuse University wrestler. He's got a lot of accomplishments there as an actual wrestler, collegiate wrestler. And they said, you got the it factor, man. You look good. You got a good looking face. The good things are to come. So it went from there to Monday Night Raw, talking to these guys and letting them know, doing a vignette. I actually did a vignette because they wanted to see how I could handle myself on a mic, which I did that backstage without a mic. I did it in front of a green screen. Okay. And they were like, wow, the kids got it. They gave me a topic to talk on, which was a gallon of milk. They wanted me to sell them a gallon of milk. So I'm standing there. I'm like, okay, tell us about this gallon of milk. What's so special about this milk? So I look over at it and I'm like, oh shit. Well, I don't drink regular milk. I don't drink 2% milk. Now I'm thinking this in my head. I drink organic milk. Why do I drink organic milk? It gives me the nutrients to feed my muscles, my bones, my joints. It gives me the nutrients I need to complete my matches and do what I got to do to put you in the 1, the 2, and the 3. And it just went on from there. And they were like looking at me. They're like looking at me like, well, damn, we just told him to do this, and he just did it like that, ad-libbing. And it was a little more to it than what I just said, but the way I delivered it, because I was actually caressing that gallon of milk, talking to it like a baby. And then I pick up that gallon of milk and I'm caressing it, not knowing if it's real milk or not, because it doesn't have a label on it. It just has milk wrote on it in black bold letter. So I grab the milk and I'm caressing it like it's a baby. I pop the top on it. Organic. And then I slam it down and then they look at me and say, They look at each other. They look back at me. Organic. You are organic. And that's how it happened. And I went back in the next day, which was a SmackDown, which is a pre-recording. And I wrestled that day. And it was a early wrestling match. It was filmed at 2:00. And they did film it, and I did get to watch it and preview it. And the match was really good. I was a little pissed off about the match because the guy I was working with forgot his lines. So, yeah, right. I had to carry him. And if anybody in the wrestling business knows, the heel, which is the bad guy, carries, he has to call the match. The babyface listens, but what happened, they had to reverse right there because we had 6 minutes to do this in. And the referee is right there in your face telling you 3 minutes. You got 3 minutes. Lost. So I had to take control of the match and call the whole damn thing. And that's how everything happened, how it took place. And I left the ring. When I left the ring, I was like, fuck. And the referee heard me. He knew I was upset. And I went to the stage. You know how the ramp is when you come down the SmackDown ramp? Yeah. I didn't go back up that ramp. I went off to the side around the curtain. By that time, I got the head referee running after me. I've got Mike Rotunda coming at me. And they meet me at the curtain. And he grabs me by the arm and says, oh, wait. You did nothing wrong. Calm down. You didn't do anything wrong. You covered his mistake. You recovered. We knew what happened, but the people didn't know. The people that were spectating.
Which is what
it was just like, right. He says they didn't know what happened, but we did, and it's okay. But you recovered. You picked up the ball and you scored the touchdown. He says that's what we're looking for. And I remember talking to Shane McMahon briefly. Shane come over and says, that was a pretty good match. He says, I want to talk to you later. And I end up talking to him later. And I talked with John Combs, who's actually the talent scout. He's also the lead senior referee for the WWE. And they give me an email to contact William Regal at the PC Center, which is the Performance Center. And that did not go over well. So I contacted Regal and told him, hey, I talked with John Combs and Shane McMahon, and they want me to get a PC tryout. And so a day or two went by. He contacts me back. He says, in the email, and I'm shooting here, I'm telling you the truth. He says, I don't appreciate you treating me like I'm some kind of imbecile. And he says, I talked to John Combs, and John Combs said, he never told you to contact me. I said, well, Shane McMahon told me to contact you. John Combs told me to contact you. So I went back to these emails that I had. Prior to even talking to Regal that day, I said to a guy, I'm not going to call this guy out because I don't want to get him in any trouble.
Yeah.
I said to the guy, I said, look, you remember standing there talking to John Combs and having a conversation about us contacting the PC Center and getting the email for William Regal? He said, yeah, absolutely, I do. He says, I already contacted him. I said, okay, I'm just making sure that I'm not going in the wrong direction here or I've done something wrong. Huh?
Well, you're not hallucinating.
Right. And I'm thinking, okay, I take this, I screenshot this email between me and this guy, and I send it with a long letter to William Regal. And I said, sir, I have not, disrespected you in any form or manner. I said, I would never do that. I hold you with the highest respect. I said, and I don't appreciate, you coming at me like this in an unprofessional manner when I told you the truth. I said, and here's the truth at the bottom. Click this and open it up and read it. And he never contacted me back after that because I guess he felt like an idiot. And, excuse me.
So, quote unquote, politics, right?
Politics. Yeah. So I contact John Combs. John Combs says, just relax. We'll get you back in the door. It's not a problem. And I asked him, I said, you guys owe me some money. I've been waiting 4 weeks on my check and I haven't got my check yet. I said, where's my money at? You haven't paid me. And he's yet to contact me back. So what I do is I call headquarters and I tell her, I say, look, this is Charles Haywood. I gave her my social and all that. I said, I'm still waiting on my money. She said, we mailed that money out on 24th of November. I said, well, it's December the 6th or 7th. What day was it, babe? About the 4th or the 5th. I still haven't received this check. Well, then I proceed to tell her, well, this is who I work for. And this is what I do for a living. And meaning the marshals and the Continental Marshals at that. And I said, if I don't get my check, I will file a lawsuit through DC Legal, which is our legal team. And I expect that check any day. She says, sir, we will have that check out to you FedExed within the next 2 to 3 days. So that matter was squared up quickly.
Nice.
But yeah, politics. Politics is what is killing the business of professional wrestling. And it's due to guys like William Regal.
Well, fortunately, you have some things in the works. And it sounds like, you've achieved a lot in your wrestling career. I mean, not many people can say they've even made it to the big stage. I mean, you got guys who go their entire careers and don't ever even get that chance. You walked right into it. You were mentored by a legend. You've wrestled with legends. You've been on the biggest stage possible. I mean, you've done it all as far as the wrestling game goes. So what do you have going on now? Can you tell us a little bit about the Veterans Freedom Project?
Well, the Veterans Freedom Project was actually my wife's idea. Okay. And we knew we had to have a tool behind it to generate dollar bills for these soldiers, and for the wounded. The Wounded Warriors Project have their own deal. But there's a lot about that project that I can't really talk about because I don't want a lawsuit. But it's not operated like it should. Okay. So, a lot of the money somehow disappears, so to speak, when it needs to go to these soldiers that need it. Our project, which is the Veterans Freedom Project, is a 100% all donations, all proceeds, whether it be from ticket sales, merchandise sales. We take that money at the end of the night, and we've already got a list of names of soldiers that need this funding. That's already been planned out between me and my wife. And when we start doing our shows, when we start making money, we're going to take those proceeds from those events and donate them directly, face to face, to each soldier. And even the fallen soldiers' families, we're donating money to those guys as well, because they're just as important as that soldier that lost his life. And that is a very, very touchy thing with me because of my family's background, my brother and my mother being in the military both, and having a lot of friends in the military. And I have seen the suffering, especially from the PTSD, and the hell that has caused so many veterans due to being in those types of situations. And they come home like broken men, and it's sad. And it's pretty bad when VAs are turning them away, and the government assistance is not there to help them. And it really makes me angry. And so my wife herself actually come up with this idea. I knew I had the wrestling experience, promoting experience, because I've done this for so long. And I know for a fact with the funding that we have, because we have a private silent partner who happens to be a brigadier general. I can't call his name because he is a silent partner. And the funding is there. And we are going to compete at the same level as the WWE. And this project's been worked on for a year so we could get it down perfectly. I's dotted, T's crossed, everything. And we've got a lot of people out of Hollywood actors that are interested in getting involved. I can mention their names. Shannon Tatum being one of those people. He is interested in helping us push what we're doing. Eric Landreth, who is a writer, producer, and actor and comedian, well-known comedian. He is helping us put this together as well. My wife, Tresa Haywood, myself, and I've got a list of athletes that when I unleash these guys, other companies are going to be crying. And I've got big name guys that I'm talking to that are previous WWE wrestlers. I've got one of my stars, his name is Apollo. El Leon, he wrestled in TNA. He wrestled for WWE. And he is a phenomenal athlete. Chicano Cotto is another athlete we're bringing in. Caprice Coleman, myself. Dan the Beast Severin is even going to be wrestling for. Yeah, he's a real good friend of ours. He's coming in to help us. Shannon the Cannon Rich, is going to be also participating in these events. We've also talked to other UFC fighters who are going to participate in wrestling, which is Phil Baroni and Stephen Bonner.
Nice.
So Hall of Famer Stephen Bonner. We have talked to those guys. They are interested and ready to go at any time I need them. We've got 16 athletes total, and then we've got a board that's actually going to run my idea. I've got a team of people that are going to produce it and produce it a lot better than what WWE does. A lot more wrestling, a less talking. And that's what people come to see. They want to see wrestling. They want to see it in its original format. And you know, the vignettes, they're going to be very brief. It's going to be a show. It's going to be entertaining, but we're not going to sit there and talk 20 minutes on a microphone. You're going to come, when you come to our shows, you're going to see wrestling.
Action.
Right. And that's what we represent, is old school style wrestling with a modern day twist.
I like it. It sounds like you have a lot of potential there, especially being in the business as long as you have, all you've learned, all the connections you've made. I look forward to seeing this, man, and the cause is amazing. So
yeah,
big thank you for that.
Yeah, I do know our starting dates are going to be March. I don't have the dates yet, but I do know it's going to be in March, and we're going to hit military. We're going to hit military bases, and we're also going to hit actual venues. We've looked at several in L.A. We've looked at several in New York, Madison Square Garden being one of those venues. So this is not a small budget thing. This is going to be ran just like these other major companies that exist, and we've got a lot of backers, a lot of guys supporting us on this, and it's going to be mainstream. And Vince McMahon, if you watch this video, you should have thought twice about not signing me, buddy.
If Vince McMahon is watching this, well, yeah.
And I'll make sure he gets a copy.
Nice. Well, look forward to hearing all about it and seeing it come to fruition. Wish you the best, man. I know you're going to kill it. Thanks for coming on and sharing your story. I wish we had more time. I know there's a lot of stuff we didn't get to touch on, but we'll have you back on for another episode down the road.
Absolutely.
More about the Freedom Project once it comes about and really takes off. Other than that, now I want to give you a couple secs to give any shout outs that you like to give, any plugs, any things like that.
Well, guys, you can find me on Instagram under Mike Youngblood 019. You can find me on Facebook as Michael Youngblood, Thunder Horse Michael Youngblood. And you can also find me on YouTube under my name, Michael Youngblood. And the Veterans Freedom Project is up and rolling as now. We are backed by the Continental Marshals for the Republic. That means we're for the people. And we are also backed by the United States military and OMS, Offices of Military Settlements. And I'm so proud of those guys stepping up to the plate, helping us. They are the reason that we do exist, OMS. They are the driving tool behind us financially, and so are the marshals. There's going to be a lot of changes within the next couple of months, positive changes, and we're going to make this thing huge, and we're going to run against everybody out there, mainly WWE. We're going to give them a run for their money.
Nice. Well, awesome, man. Okay, so before we end, we ask every guest to give us some words of wisdom. It could be about anything. If you're to give one message to somebody out there, what would it be?
Words of wisdom right here. Treat everybody as you want to be treated. Love your brothers, love your sisters, have respect for one another. We've got to make it through this world together. When they divide us, they conquer us. Don't let them divide us. Stand together as one unit, strong, firm, and move straight ahead. Push forward. Love each other, because that's the only way we're going to make it through this evil world. is to love one another, help one another. And that's what we're put here to do. And that's the only way we're going to get ahead in this life. And I sincerely mean that. Treat each other as an equal. And I love you all. I love everybody, brother. I love everybody out there. And I support everything you do, Tony. I really do. And I appreciate you having me on. And you're part of this family now. Yep, you're a part of this family now. So,
well, on that note, I take a second to let everyone know that Michael Youngblood is officially a Barbell Nutrition Ambassador, soon to be sponsored athlete. So stay tuned for that, and we'll start getting that information out to you guys. But welcome to our family, sir. And,
thank you.
On that note, thanks for the review. It's been a good conversation. Look forward to seeing what you're gonna do, and that's it. Appreciate having you on, brother.
Thank you, brother. Much love.
All right, you too, man. Take care.
Take care of yourself.
All right. And today's episode, as always, brought to you by Barbell Nutrition. And we have the Barbell Max Stack. So we have reaction intra post workout, going to help with muscle growth, recovery, hydration, you name it. Raw test, raw HGH, all natural supplements that'll help you increase testosterone levels, HGH levels. HGH is responsible for fat loss, anti-aging, you name it. So these are great products, all natural, no banned substance. And lastly, Thermite is our thermogenic fat loss complex. Again, all natural, going to help you with focus, energy, without all the crazy jitters, upset stomach, anything like that. And help with appetite suppression, water retention, the works. So you can get the entire stack at our website, barbellnutrition.com. Use code barbell15 to get 15% off that stack. I'm sorry, bundle 15, or you can use barbell 10 to get 10% off any bottle. And on that note, thanks for tuning in. And until next time, guys, take care.